Unleash Success podcast, where we break down the secrets of success to give you real tools and strategies that get real results. And now, here's your host, Corey Corpodian.
Welcome back to Unleash Success. If you haven't subscribed to our newsletter yet, just go to unleashsuccess.com, enter your email so you can get all the tools and strategies sent directly to you each and every week. Welcome back to Unleash Success. Today, we are interviewing Robert Farrington, the founder of The College Investor. Robert is a money expert and a student loan debt expert as well. He has helped people in 1 month eliminate over $1.4 million of debt just last year. He's got a lot of strategies if you're in student loan debt and you need to get out of it, or if you're looking to make a little bit extra cash so you can pay down those loans. Robert, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. I mean, honestly, I think I said this before, just how much I'm in student debt, and a lot of people on my podcast have heard me say it before, but $850,000 when I graduated from my residency. It was a crazy time to be able to try and navigate the environment. But I want to know, why'd you get into this business, and why is student loan debt such a big factor in your life, and what did you do to get rid of yours?
Totally. So I am an accidental student loan debt expert. It was definitely not my plan to learn about it, to be a part of it. But you know what? I was always passionate about personal finance and investing and side hustling and earning more money. And so I started The College Investor as a side hustle, as a passion project, because for some reason I thought some people would want to know what a 22-year-old's ideas on picking stocks would be. You know, that was what it started as. But after I'd been doing it for like a year and a half, I finally shared a little bit about my frustration with my own student loan debt. I had about $42,000 in student loan debt, so not up to your level, but you know, it was still quite a lot. But the bigger issue was that my student loan servicer was messing up my monthly payments. Like they weren't applying them right, and like my direct debit wasn't working. And so I wrote a long blog post about like how this sucked and what I was doing about it. And people were like, yeah, that really resonated with people. They're like, yeah, I hate my loan servicer too, and they're doing the same thing to me, and like this all is terrible. And I was like, oh wow, like that was kind of like my first article that like got a lot of comments on it and social shares, and I was like, I should like really dive in and explore this some more. And that was about 8 or 9 years ago, and since then we've dove into every subject possible with student loan debt, and really trying to help people navigate this complex problem that involves money and emotions and the government, and like literally everything that people hate in the world is kind of evolved into one package of student loans, right?
Absolutely. I was just thinking money, emotions, government. No.
Right? Exactly. It's hard. And so, just as I've talked more about it, I've learned about it, I've helped people with it, really become fluent in student loans, sadly. But hopefully we can take these lessons and apply them and help other people. And that's what I really enjoy doing.
Yeah, an accidental loan expert. You know, I find that a lot of times out of our own frustrations and pains, we search for answers, and then you just shared it with people and started rolling with it. That's pretty amazing. And $50,000 in debt. I mean, that's, the average American these days is graduating with, I think, over $50,000 in debt. And they're anticipating going into a job market. People are getting master's degrees, and they're going into a job market where maybe they think they're going to make 70, 80, 100,000. But I think first year out, maybe they make 40, 42.
Oh, yeah, it's the thing. So, this was a side hustle, and I worked at Target as a store manager for 15 years. And so I saw this philosophy and this trend of young adults these days is they want the job after the entry level job. But we all start somewhere, right? Like, and that first job out of college is going to make you like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year. And it's not until you have like 5-7 years of experience that you should expect to be earning more. Like, you just don't have the experience when you graduate to justify higher salaries. But on the flip side, you have to be mindful of how much you borrow, because you're right. Like student loan debt, like it's a burden, and it's an emotional, like it's emotions, it's money, it's your budget. And, you're not going to make a lot right after you graduate college. It doesn't happen for most people. Not to say that there's those few people that shoot out of college and make 100K. It does happen, and they're great, MSN articles, but most people aren't going to have that happen to them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, my first 2 years or 3 years even, I didn't really hit my full stride working until about 3-4 years in. And so it takes a lot of time to build up that income where you can really start managing. And one of the mistakes that I made right out of residency was I could not defer, but I could put them in forbearance. I think, and so there was like a few things where it was like, oh, you don't have to pay. So I did that, and it wasn't until they just grew so much, and then the interest compounded, and I was sitting there just smacking myself in the head because you're right. It was emotional. It was so much money. It was just overwhelming. I had so much other stuff, like trying to create a life, find a job, do all these things that I just didn't want to deal with it. And that was the easy way out. It ended up costing me thousands of dollars in debt or in interest. But what I realized is that I could, apply for these different types of government loan programs that put me into a different category, right? So what should we be doing if we haven't done it? People who have student loans, like what programs should we enroll immediately right out of college, or maybe even look to switch to?
Immediately when you graduate, you need to, number one, get organized, because the average student loan or the average graduate has 5 different student loans. And you think about it, it makes sense, right? You get one freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year. A lot of people are taking summer quarters or summer semesters. And, my people might be on a 5 or 6 year program by the time they're done. So you could have a bunch of different loans, right? So number one is get organized. Go onto your loan servicer's website, make sure you have all your loans, make sure you've updated your address so you're not missing anything, because you might have put down your address when you were a freshman in college, and now you're graduated and you're moving somewhere, maybe for a job, or you're moving home. Like, make sure everything is organized, updated, and you know what you have. Then you can actually make a reasonable choice about your loan repayment plan. So do not defer it and go into forbearance like you did. You learned that lesson the hard way. But ugly. The best thing you could do is get on a income-driven or student loan repayment plan that you can afford to make the payments every month. It's the best thing you can do. It might not be fun to be on an income-driven repayment plan and watch the loan balance grow, but every income-driven repayment plan has loan forgiveness at the end of the tunnel. So, the light might be really far off down the tunnel, but you can get loan forgiveness. So just start making monthly payments every single month that you can afford, and, you will be on the right track. And then give yourself a year. Figure out your job, figure out your life a little bit, but make those income-driven repayments for a year and then reassess if there's a better option for you. Maybe you're making more money at that point in time. Maybe refinancing makes sense. Maybe loan consolidation makes sense. But the number one thing you can do is get organized and then just get on a repayment plan and start making those payments ASAP.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I ended up doing. And there's all different types of programs, and that just makes it affordable for the time being, so you can actually manage the payments. I want to go into
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to say, and then you can assess, like, there's a lot of loan forgiveness programs. Don't let the headlines that you see in the news scare you about 99% of people getting rejected. 99% of people didn't know how to fill out the form or follow directions or educate themselves before they applied. Like, the programs are 100% working like they're supposed to. Now you're still dealing with government bureaucracy, you're still dealing with stuff, but it is 100% possible to get loan forgiveness if you follow the directions.
That's interesting. It's funny. It's like they do make it hard for us to figure it out. It's like, it's not always easy. And I wish all my loans were in one portal. And honestly, the best way that I do it is I check my free credit report. I'm able to see all the loans that I have. Is the easiest thing. So I want to get into the mindset of loans. I mean, money is emotional, right? I mean, just trying to figure it out. I was so overwhelmed when I got out that I didn't even know what to do. How do you prep yourself to handle these money issues? I mean, so many people out there. My youngest sister actually just graduated college, and she's got some student loans. It's like, what should she be thinking about when she's going into these student loans and trying to handle them?
So first off, it really comes down to organization. So I am a big believer. So I will tell you, 98% of everyone I've spoken to that is struggling with their student loans can't answer the basic questions of how much loan balance, how much do you have in student loan debt? What's your monthly payment? When would your loans be paid off if you were paying these loans? Like, they don't know. And so I found that on the flip side, everyone that is dominating their student loan debt knows exactly what's going on with their student loans. So the common theme here is organization. So you just said you use your free credit monitoring. I don't know if it's Credit Karma or Credit Sesame or Mint or, there's a lot of free tools out there. Go get a tool and go get organized with your loans, because it can be super overwhelming when you don't know. And a lot of our overwhelm and our emotional connection to these loans comes from that uncertainty in our lives, right? You have this uncertainty, like how you're going to make your loan payments and how you're going to afford it. But it's like, if you don't even know what that number is, you're just adding to your uncertainty. And it makes it even more challenging to get out of debt if you're not organized with it.
You're absolutely right, Robert. I mean, literally just thinking about that, just educating yourself, it makes it easier to manage. You can't manage if you don't measure it, right? So
exactly.
I look at this and I think to myself, all right, so I'm started educating myself and I've got my loans, and I did that. But you're not just about helping people figure out how to manage their loans, but also about how to pay them down, how to get rid of them. I mean, you helped 3,400 readers last year eliminate $1.4 million in student loan debt in just 1 month. So what are the things that you guys are doing to do this?
So there's two sides. So at the end of the day, it's just math, right? You have your income, you have your student loan payment and your other debt payments, and then you have what's left over, right? So you have, income minus expenses equals your savings, or how much extra you could pay down towards your debt. So you have two options. You can save more money. You could really budget. You could still live with roommates after college for 3 years. You could take public transportation and not buy a car, live close to work, ride a bike, all these things. There's countless ways to save money. But that is only finite. You can only save, even in the best case scenario, you're not going to be able to save a ton of money. Like, you still got to live. You still have to have some food to eat. You still got to get to work somehow, right? So we talk a lot about just the basics of being conscious about your spending. And then I'm a huge fan of earning more and side hustling. That's how I got out of student loan debt. I paid off my loans in 2.5 years, and I did it by side hustling. And it's what I advocate, because the earn more money side of that equation is limitless. You can work your day job. There are so many different apps and tools that you could go out and make money. And it's not glamorous, some of the work that you do. But on the flip side, we've never been in a time in history where you can make a couple $100 more a month, 100% on your own terms from a smartphone. And for most people, if you could put $200, $300 more a month into your budget, that's life-changing money. And so maybe it does mean that every Saturday you go out and drive ride sharing, but that makes a big difference in your bottom line, and that could get you out of debt in half the time.
Yeah, everything you're saying, it makes so much common sense, and yet I don't see a whole lot of people doing it. I feel like people are complaining about the problem instead of trying to solve it.
Well, sure. And you know why they're not doing it is it goes back to the psychology and the mental mindset of money. It's what is my friends and what is my family going to say? Who's going to judge me for driving for Uber? I went to college, I got a degree, I should be doing all these amazing things. And yet on Saturdays and Sundays, I'm driving for ride sharing. This doesn't make sense. But you want to know something? I want you to fast forward your life 5-6 years from now. You're going to look back on this time when you were hustling with pride, because now you are slingshotting yourself ahead of everybody you know. Because, when you're 24 and driving for ride sharing isn't cool, right? Actually, it is. But, your friends and your family, or internally, you have this voice telling you that it's not cool. But when you're 30 and you're debt free and you're looking to buy a house and your cars are paid off and you have this life you love, it's pretty darn cool.
It absolutely is. And I love that you said that, because I'm a big advocate, definitely, of controlling your expenses 100%. But at the same time, I value the ability to earn more over that, because it is limitless. There's so much more you can do. And I've done it, over and over again. One of the things that I'm interested in, I think that you have a pretty good idea of this, but it is investing, so I personally I paid very little amounts early on in my loans because I felt like I should be putting money towards investments and things that I want, that I think that would make more sense. And it was a weird situation. I'll just explain the whole thing. Was basically, I was like, if I invest money right now for the next 25 years, at the end of 25 years, those loans might disappear, whatever's left, but the investments that I make are going to help me earn more money. And if you put it in the right system, it can be tax free.
Yeah, you're totally like on point here. I mean, I think the thing is there's two things to think about. You have like personal finance triage mode, right? Like, let's get our budget in line. Let's make our minimum payments on our student loans and, like just get the basics done, right? And then once you get out of triage mode, I think you're 100% correct. And I like to strike that financial balance, I call it. I like to pay down your debt and invest because you're spot on. There's vehicles like your 401k and an IRA and maybe a health savings account that you can only contribute X amount of dollars a year. Like an IRA is, $6,000 a year in 2019. And when you're 22, you can't go back in time and like make up contributions. So like if you could contribute to that when you're 22, 23, 24, that money can compound and grow, and it grows tax-free. You have the potential to withdraw it tax-free if it's in a Roth IRA. So like there's opportunity in being able to save there. And also like if you have an employer, like taking advantage of their 401k match, right? So many employers might match you dollar for dollar up to like 5%, 6% of your salary. Like you should be stashing because like you don't want to leave free money on the table that you can't get back. You lose that money if you don't take advantage of it. So I'm a big believer in once you get out of that personal finance triage mode, to strike a financial balance of saving and investing as well as paying down debt. And you can also do that by earning more, right? Bringing in more money and then finding that balance with how you're going to deploy that capital.
Yeah. And I think about, I'm blanking on the book right now, but it was about, it's an old book. It's never mind. I'll figure it out later, I'm sure. But basically it was all about kind of paying yourself first. Like you got to make sure you pay yourself first. See, we get so caught up in what we have to pay for that we never invest in ourselves. And so, if you put aside after that triage, like you said, a little bit of money for yourself, at the end of your life, I think people are just thinking they're going to rely on Social Security and it's going to be there. And I got news for people. I mean, pretty much, I don't even think it's going to be there for me. I don't know how old you are either, but I mean, it's not going to be there around. It's not going to be there to take care of us unless they change something. And so we have to take care of ourselves.
I agree with you. I think it's always going to be around. I don't dismiss the Social Security is going to go away, but it's going to change, right? So the retirement age is going to be older. The benefits are probably going to be less. And on the flip side, until we get there, we're probably going to pay more taxes because we're at historic lows for taxes right now. The only place tax rates can go is up because on the flip side, the government is also bleeding cash, right? So how do you repair that? You raise taxes. So, that's what our future is going to hold. It's going to hold higher taxes, which means less income in our pockets. And we're probably going to have to work longer to get to the benefits of Social Security and stuff if you're depending on that. So hopefully you make it. Knock on wood, right?
Right. So when you're looking at investment strategies, you talked about the IRA, you talked about being able to put those contributions in when you're a young age, employer match contributions. How much money do you, or percentage wise, do you tell people they should invest in their future? I mean, what's the formula for that?
Well, I have two things to say about that. One is, it doesn't matter your income level. You should save until it hurts. And what that means is find that amount of money where like you're looking at yourself like, how am I going to make it? This is painful to save. Then you're saving the right amount. And when you're starting out, that money, that could be like just your 5%, employer match. Like that could be saving until it hurts. But after a few years out, like you should really be looking at 20, 30, 40, 50% of your income. Like, and you can do that by also boosting your income. We always keep going back to that because it doesn't have to just be your salary that you're looking at saving. Like you can add money to the pot and save more. I think one of the things that I always just love is if you could get there, like if you were 22 again and you saved 50% of your income from 22 to 32, by the time you're 32 years old, you could be financially independent and be done. Like just, I'm out. And it's possible if you save 50, 60, 70%, and there's people that do it. But on the flip side, like life isn't always all about saving money. Like there's also been so many horror stories of people that saved until it hurt and they never gave themselves a life. And, they pissed off like any potential spouses that they could have because their spouses didn't enjoy this lifestyle of uber frugality and like making your own toilet paper. Like you have to find a balance of like your life and everything, but you definitely need to save. Like you can't abandon that. And I agree with you. Pay yourself first. Save, which basically means save for yourself first as much as you can until it hurts.
And I think the whole point about that one book, which I finally remember the name of it, it's The Richest Man in Babylon. And one thing that I remember reading from it, and it's like this old time book. It's kind of interesting the way they word things, but it said invest your money and then your money will work for you to make more money. And then your money will have little babies basically, and they'll be making money for themselves. And it's this compounding effect that happens when you actually start investing, especially like you said, at 22 years old, that there's a time factor that people never realize that, when you invest $1,000 a month for couple years, you have a couple $1,000s, but if you invest that for 30 years, it compounds over time to earn more money.
Well, and that's you're 100% right. And that's the amazing part of compound interest, but it's also the challenging part of compound interest. I was having this conversation with my sister-in-law the other day. She's in her 20s and, just started contributing to a 403B, which is the public service equivalent of a 401k. And she was really bummed out. She's like, my portfolio only went up. I think she has like, $4,000 in there. And she's like, it's up to like $4,500. And I was like, man, that's like a 14% return in a year. Like that's amazing money. And if you guys don't realize, like 14% is above average stock market returns. We're at the, in a really good economic cycle right now. The stock market on average returns 10% over the last, 100 years. But 14% over a year is a phenomenal return. But in dollars, that's only, $500. And that doesn't necessarily feel really good at the beginning, right? So when you're just looking at dollars, you're like, that's it? That's all I did? That's all I got out of this? Like, why did I put all that money away? But what you don't realize is that's going to now you're going to get, 10% on that $4,500. And then the next year, you're going to contribute more money and you're going to see a return on that full balance. And again, it's going to keep happening over and over again. And by the time you're in your 50s, like you're going to be doing that same amount and you're going to see $100,000 swings. It's just those first few years, they're really just kind of disappointing to look at. So you have to kind of like, understand that emotionally when you're looking at your account balances, and you got to stay with it and stay in it for the long run.
Absolutely. I think it's right, like 7 years to double your savings if you're investing in something that returns 10%. Is that roughly?
Yeah, exactly. That's roughly correct. That rule of 72. So it's about 7.5 years. But that's a long time for young adults.
Oh,
it's a long time for anybody, right? Like, I mean, if you think back at yourself 7 years ago, like you were a whole different person, right?
Totally. I just think about like the rule of set it and forget it, right? So it's, you don't invest a lot necessarily, but you invest a little bit every single month or every single year. And over time that compounds. Now, like you said, $500 doesn't sound exciting, but imagine you saved up over, 15 years, you saved up $200,000 or something. And then all of a sudden the next 20 years, that goes from 200 to 400 to 800. And if you waited another 7 years, I mean, depending on when you start, right? Depending on how early you start, you could have $1.6 million at the end. I always think about when I was younger, if my parents had just told me to, invest like $1 a day since I was a kid, where would I be at? And I always do this calculation, like it'd be so easy to be, to retire a millionaire if we started from zero investing $1 a day.
Oh, totally. I've done the math on it. I just pulled it up really quick. So if you want to be a millionaire at 62, if you start at age 22, you only have to invest $3,600 a year. Right. So that's nothing, right? That's going to be a couple $100 a month. What is that? $300 a month, every single month, starting at age 22. And you'll be a millionaire by 62. But if you wait until you're 29, you're going to have to save double a year. You're going to have to save $6,400 a month, or about $550 a month to hit that same goal. And that's that power. That 8-year span makes a huge difference in how much you need to save to achieve the same goal. And that's why the earlier you start, the better. Or you're going to have to make it up by just saving more. You can either have time on your side or you have to have money on your side. And that's how it works.
Most people don't have either, I feel like.
Well, yeah, you do. I mean, one of my favorite quotes in the world, it's an old Chinese proverb, is the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today. And it basically means like we all kick ourselves, right? We all have this hindsight like, oh man, if I only went back in time and invested all my money in Netflix stock like 20 years ago, I'd be a billionaire today. Well, you can't do that, but you can start investing today. And then 20 years from now, you'll look back and thank yourself for it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I've heard that quote before. I love it. And it's because, you know what? I mean, at the end of the day, you could spend time regretting the decisions you didn't make, or you can just take action today and do it.
Exactly. I mean, there's always the what if. But, like all you can do is change your course and do something today to make it better for the future.
Totally. So we keep talking about growing our income, growing our monthly income. $300 a month isn't too bad. And, when you're younger, but how do we do that? You talked a little bit about ride sharing, some side hustles, and you're a really big advocate for side hustles and creating multiple streams of income. What do you suggest for people?
Huge advocate of it. I think you got to figure out what works for you, whether it is you have an entrepreneurship bug and you want to like start a blog or create a product or sell something, like that's cool. But not everyone's an entrepreneur. Not everyone wants to do that. You could literally go get a second job. People have been getting second jobs for 100 years, right? You work your day job and you go work retail on nights and weekends. Like if you're in a trade or a service, like you could sell your services. Like maybe you're already doing like web development for, a big company. Well, go sign up on Upwork and freelance and, go do that for other companies. Like, the ways you can earn are limitless. You could flip stuff. Like Gary Vee has been all about like flipping stuff on eBay lately, which I used to do a lot. I was making $2,000 a month after college, flipping stuff on eBay by going to garage sales and estate sales and reselling it online. Like I love doing that stuff. You could sell your own stuff. Oh my gosh, I can't believe how much junk people have in their houses that they never use. I bet you every one of your listeners today can find $500 worth of stuff in their own house that they could go sell right now. Like
Absolutely.
it's just limitless, right?
I just got rid of like, I don't know, maybe 100 or 200 DVDs. I was like, why do I even have these nowadays? But people will pay for them, It's like, I mean, not a lot, but it's just like there's little things. And at the same time, I have an Xbox. I haven't played in like 5 or 10 years. I don't even know how long.
That was one of the first things I sold on eBay was my own. I had an old Super Nintendo and like 10 games for it. That was just like sitting, right? And like I was like, why? So I sold that thing, and that's like an antique video game system, man. I got like $100 and something when I first sold that thing. That was awesome.
Man, if you hold on to it long enough, it actually goes up in value.
Right? And that's what's so funny is like there's limitless ways to earn. And like I said, you could sign up for an app, you could deliver food, you could deliver groceries, you could drive people. You could, I don't know, there's like pet sitting, there's handyman work, there's like whatever it is. You could sell stuff on Etsy. My sister-in-law makes like wedding invitations with like really fancy stuff and bows and whatnot. And she does it while she watches TV in her family room. It only takes like like $10 in supplies, but it's a huge markup for this market. And she makes a couple $100 a month. My other cousin is in college and she goes to the thrift store and resells, fancy designer clothes that she buys for like $5 and she sells them on Poshmark. Like I don't even know what Poshmark is really. I mean, I do, but like it's not for me. It's for women's fashion and stuff. And she's making a killing on that at 22 years old. Like there's so many ways that you can make money online or offline or on the side. It's limitless.
I mean, I love your mentality and going through this. What happens when you struggle, right? When you make a mistake? Like I made a mistake that was pretty big and cost me thousands of dollars in interest as it compounded. But as we're going through this process, what do you do when you make a mistake?
Yeah, I mean, you beat yourself up and you regret it and you mope about it, but you got to give yourself a time limit to like figure out what that acceptance looks like. And the bigger the mistake, the more time it's going to take. And you have to just listen to someone like us on this podcast talking about it, because you're not going to be able to tell yourself that, but hopefully you hear this and you realize like, okay, I've grieved, I've figured it out. And then you just got to make a plan. You got to get organized. You got to think about it, and you make a plan. And the biggest thing is execute that plan. But you have to realize it is okay to give yourself time to kick yourself for making a financial mistake or any kind of mistake, right? But then you just do need to get on with it and make a plan to get out of it. You can't just dwell on it forever. You can't let it control you. You can't let it, trap your whole life. Like, your life is a long time. You can change it. You can get better. You can improve things in the future. It might take a lot of time, but you can always make every day better. One of the things I always like to say is, when a lot of people make financial mistakes or life mistakes, it weighs on them. It's like the number one thing in their mind when they wake up in the morning, right? But the best thing you can do is improve it. So maybe tomorrow, it's not the first thing on your mind, it's the second thing on your mind. And then, in another week or 2 weeks or month or even a year, now it's the third thing on your mind. And over time, it'll slowly become a lower and lower priority because you've been improving it. You're putting things more at the top of your mind. And, after time, it's not even on your mind anymore. And that's what you have to realize as you're going through that process.
Yeah, I love that. And I struggled so much with the overwhelming debt and the mindset around money. And then it's this weird thing where you start making money, you feel good, but then you have to just immediately pay off student loans and you feel bad again because you have no money. And so I think putting together the plan and shifting my mindset around it, saying, you know what, this is just what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. And getting excited about making money, getting excited about other things really allowed me to enjoy the process as opposed to hating it.
Totally. And that's where I think going back to these organization apps and stuff, like they track your net worth, like looking at that number feels good, right? Like, especially when it's moving in a positive direction and you start paying off debt. And the cool thing is like you lose it from your bank account, but then it also eliminates your debt. So like, you're not like losing any net worth and you're tracking your money and stuff. And when I was in the heat of paying down all my debt, like I was checking my money every day. I'd go in there and I'd see what came in, and then I'd see if I could I'd do some math. Can I make an extra payment today? No, maybe tomorrow. I was in there checking it religiously. And that's what you have to do. If it's important to you and you're trying to get out of it, you need to just be in your business. No one's going to care more about your money than you.
Absolutely. Definitely. I wanted to ask you you talk about these apps. What are some automation tools used? Because I've always found, at least for me, the best way to invest, to pay down any kind of debt is always to automate it.
Totally. Yeah. Honestly, I'm a big believer in automation as well. So I think, having direct deposit set up for your paycheck, have it go into your checking account, and then having all your student loan payments and other bills come out and automatically pay. If you can, I recommend using a credit card and having everything pay from a credit card, and then you pay off the credit card 100% in full every single month. So not only are you getting rewards, but that credit card also acts as a safety buffer for you. So if anyone was to steal it or whatnot, it's hitting your credit card, it's not hitting your bank account. And there's different rules as well that you could look up, but your credit card's a lot safer for you. So use a credit card, put everything you can on it, then pay off that credit card in full every month automatically from your checking account.
Robert,
I also
real quick, sorry.
Yeah.
With paying with a credit card, which loans, are you able to do that? I've never even been given that option.
Loans? Yes, there's ways to pay off your loans with a credit card, but I'm talking about your other bills and stuff on automation too. So,
okay.
Your water bill, your phone bill, your internet bill, all that kind of stuff you could put on your credit card. There are services out there. One that comes to mind is called Plastiq, Plastiq. And you can link your credit card to it, and Plastiq basically pays off your loan and bills your credit card for it. So there's definitely ways to do it. People have done that with their mortgages and different things as well, because you can also leverage that to maximize credit card reward bonuses. by making huge payments and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've never heard of this. I'm going to go literally after we do this because I would love to put my mortgage on that or whatever.
But
any of my
you have to be mindful of the fee. So they charge a fee. So you got to do some math in there and figure out if it's worth it or not worth it to use it. But a lot of people think it is because especially if you can get like a really lucrative like credit card bonus, but you have to spend like say like $5,000 to get that bonus. Like, they do the math. I'm not amazing at points hacking and things like that, but there's some people out there that, they figure out all the things of like how I'm going to get a trip to Europe for free kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I've met a guy who literally was like, yeah, I got a trip to Fiji. It cost me $20. I was like, what?
Exactly.
200,000 points, but okay.
And then I was going to say the second thing is a lot of people don't realize this, but with direct deposit, you can usually pick more than one account. So a lot of people send all their direct deposit into like their checking account and then go from there. Well, I'm a big believer in trying to automatically save, like you talked about. So your 401k always comes out of your paycheck, but then set up your checking account to be like 80% of your money. And then your savings account, have 20% of your paycheck, like automatically go into a savings or pick your percentage, but then you can automatically save every single paycheck. And it automatically takes care of it all for you, which is awesome.
That's great advice. And speaking, you mentioned increasing the amount you save all the way up to 50%. Or
more.
Yeah, that's a really aggressive number. Where do you suggest people start when they're splitting up a direct deposit? I think that's fantastic. What number would it be? 10%, 20%? Would you say try and start at 30?
I would say you start at just your 401k match and then start at 10%. And then maybe you get a raise and you raise your savings rate up like another 5% and just keep doing that. But I think when I talk about like a 50% savings rate, like your day job, let's just say you make $50,000 a year. Well, let's just say your employer matches you 5%. Well, there's another $2,500 that you're getting for free that's going right into that savings rate. Let's also say your employer gives you $1,000 into your HSA just for like being healthier to use that money. Well, don't touch it. Save it. Let it grow like an IRA. There's another $1,000. And now let's say you go out and start side hustling and earning more to the tune of $500 a month. Well, now you got another $6,000 that you put in there. So, by the time you start thinking about it, you've now had an extra $10,000 of money that is bonus money above and beyond your $50,000 a year salary. So then you can save less out of your salary and more from this extra pot of money outside of your salary.
Absolutely. You mentioned something about the HSA, and that's a really interesting tool. I don't know if a lot of people know about that as much as maybe an IRA or a Roth IRA, but what exactly is the HSA and how do you use it as an investment tool?
Yeah, so the HSA, I call this the secret IRA. And I wrote about this like 5-6 years ago. It's become a lot more mainstream today. But an HSA is a health savings account. And it is a account that is tied to your health insurance, but they're separate. And it's not that you don't have health insurance, like you still have health insurance and you still have a deductible and out-of-pocket max and, all this stuff. But what the HSA allows is for individuals to contribute up to $3,500 a year and families to contribute up to $7,000 a year into this account. And what you're able to do is you can invest that money and you can pull it out tax-free anytime for health insurance or health reasons, but you can also pull it out at 59.5, just like a regular IRA with no, purposes. You can use it to pay Medicare premiums and retirement tax-free. There's about like 7 different tax benefits that make it even better than an IRA or a 401k. But the big thing is just put your money in there and don't touch it. Still pay your healthcare out of pocket and watch that money in your health savings account grow and grow and grow. And a lot of employers are giving people money into these accounts for free, just like they do for a 401k, which a lot of people don't realize as well.
Wow. So with a 401k, usually an employer will invest it for you. I know there's other ones where you can kind of direct it. But with an HSA account, how do you gain interest? can you just invest it like normal, like in a mutual fund or stocks? What do you do?
It's exactly like that. So it depends on your HSA provider, but almost all of them now allow it. Now, you might not be excited about the fund choices, but you just invest it. It's almost identical to a 401k. So usually your money goes in cash, and then you have the option to put it into a mutual fund or a target date fund or any variation of options that are provided by your HSA provider to invest in.
So I don't know if you give investment advice, but you've got all this money. You've worked really hard to save. You've got it in these different vehicles. They're tax-free, tax-deferred. You're saving money there. Your companies are putting money in for you. What do I do now?
You keep it in low-cost index funds that match the market, and you'll just automatically let it invest and reinvest those dividends until you need it. It's not sexy. You're not picking stocks. You're not doing any of this stuff, but it works, and it works phenomenally. Because here's the thing, is Wall Street has limitless money, limitless technology, some of the brightest minds in the world, and they create all these funds, and they have all these like private accounts and everything. But over time, none of them are beating the index. And over time, I mean, not saying like this year, there's probably people that are making more money in the stock market, but there's plenty of people making money less in the stock market. But over time, over a 10-year period of time, 99.8% of them don't beat the stock market return. So what makes you as a, very, very, very part-time investor think that you're going to win against them that do it full time with limitless time, resources, technology, and people, right? You're not. The best thing you can do is just put it into the lowest cost index fund that tracks the stock market and watch your money roll. And you're going to be ahead of them anyways at the end of the day.
I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, that's one of my favorites. I first heard about it from Warren Buffett, and I like the Vanguard 500 index fund, which tracks the S&P. And for you, do you have any suggestions of other ones that you like?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Vanguard. Fidelity has theirs, their Fidelity Total Stock Market and Total Bond Market Fund, and those have zero expense ratios. Like everyone loves Vanguard because Vanguard is known for being a low-cost index fund provider, but they were the first. They're not necessarily the best anymore because now they've kind of set the bar, and all these other companies, Schwab and Fidelity, are fighting for it, right? Like, so they're putting out really great low-cost index funds as well. So you really can't go wrong. Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, like they're all great. They're all in this battle, and the only people that win from that battle are the individual investors that are using those funds because you're going to save money. You're going to see your money grow over time. Speaking of Warren Buffett, he's the one that highlighted it the best. You might have remembered this from a couple years ago, but he bet that hedge fund guy that over like 5 years, like the index funds are going to beat the hedge funds, and they bet like $1 million for charity or whatever. And he won, right? Like this guy had 5 different hedge funds they created, and they couldn't beat Warren Buffett on his index funds. So like, it just goes to show, like all these fancy products, don't get me wrong, they serve a purpose. Like a hedge fund could serve a purpose for you, but it's probably not going to serve the purpose for 99.99999% of people. And most people should just continue to invest in low-cost index funds over the long term.
Absolutely. I mean, that was great advice. And I do remember that. That was actually hilarious because, I mean, even here's the smartest people in the world trying to beat the index. And Warren Buffett's just like, yeah, it's not going to happen, but I'll bet you $1 million on it.
Totally. And I want you to think about this, like outside of, take off your like, your moral hat, I guess that you should say, and like look at Wall Street. Why is all that money there? Where are they getting that money from? Right? They're getting it from you, the investor. Like you're paying for these buildings and this technology and these services. So like, are your interests aligned with them or not? And, they're always going to make money. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But like, just like everything else, like it should be a reasonable amount of money aligned with your goals. And that's where index funds come into play. They charge a very low amount of money and they're aligned with your long-term goal. If you're doing anything beyond that, you really have to question it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because the market can be volatile. We can't predict the stocks. Experts can't even accurately predict all the stocks all the time. And so for the long term, this is a great plan.
Totally, because you know what? The market is going to go down. I mean, it's one of those things. It's a certainty. It's going to go down. It's going to go up. Like it's going to do both. Like you don't know, but over the long term, we take historical data. So you look back at 100 years of historical data, and it averages 100% stock market return, averages 10% a year. Okay. But that doesn't mean that the worst year in history was a negative 70% return. And like the best year in history was like a 68 positive percent return. So you get these crazy fluctuations in the middle. But when you look over the long term, it averages about 10% per year.
I totally agree, and I think that's great advice. And as we wrap this up, I give the 80-20 rule, which for me means I interpret it as 80% of our results come from 20% of our actions. So what do you think? Yeah. I love it, because I think that if we want to maximize our results, we got to take the biggest actions. And a lot of time we just kind of spin our wheels. So for you, what do you tell people? What's your number one tip you give people to manage their money and get out of debt?
So the number one thing you can do, and we touched on this a few times, is get organized. Like you can't make any progress with your money at all if you are not financially organized. And this can look different for everybody, but like it could mean using an app, it could mean using a spreadsheet, it could be using cash and envelope system, akin to like Dave Ramsey's budgeting style. But like if you aren't organized with your money, you will not be successful with your money, any way you slice it. So just get organized. The best thing you can do is get organized.
Great advice. Thanks, Robert. And where can everybody find you online?
You can find me at thecollegeinvestor.com. You can listen to our audio show on your favorite podcast platform. You can go to YouTube or the social media channel that you prefer, and you can find us on all those platforms at The College Investor.
That's awesome. I really appreciate it. It's been such a great interview. I even learned a lot just about different avenues and tools that we could use. And I'm pretty excited for everybody to hear this one. And as always, we always ask, what is your next level of success?
My next level of success is optimizing the total life goals for me. It's not just about business, not just about family, but it's about optimizing it to find the happiness. Like I don't want to work myself to death and ignore my family. Can't just be with my family 100% of the time and ignore my business and my income earning potential. It's about really just like locking in that optimization. And I think I'm getting close, but you're never 100% there, and the seasons of life continue to throw curveballs at that. But for me, that's what success looks like, is finding that really great optimized balance.
That's awesome. And I bet when you're debt free, it's a lot easier to do as well.
It is, but like I said, every season of life is different. So, you just got to kind of adapt as you go.
100%. Robert, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
If you enjoyed the show and learned something of value, the one ask that I have is please go subscribe, whether you're on iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube. And if you leave us a 5-star rating or review, that absolutely helps us get our message out there. Each week, I'm going to continue to interview amazing people, and we're going to break down their tools and strategies to help get you real results. Feel free to visit the website, unleashsuccess.com, and subscribe to our newsletter so you get updates each week. And remember, knowing is not enough. Knowledge alone is not power. Action is. Because action is the only way you're going to get the results you want in life and truly live the life of your dreams. So take some action, subscribe to the podcast today, and get ready to unleash success in you.